Welcome to the fabulous Swan Royal Hotel. This gorgeous building was built way back in 1758. It was indeed a very, very busy coaching inn. Every room has a different story of ghosts, murders and mysteries. And today we're going to explore all of those stories. Please follow me. Welcome to the Ballroom here at the Swan Royal Hotel. Every single room has a story behind it, and this ballroom has a truly remarkable ghost story. We are going to turn the clock back to 1878, and at that period of time here in Lancashire we had lots of what's called textile rioting in Nelson, Blackburn, Colne and Preston, resulting in the deaths of many, many cotton workers. The town council, Clitheroe Town Council, met here. Mr. George Easton, the mayor of Clitheroe, said, "Gentlemen, if we have a riot in Clitheroe, the only way we can quell it is with military force." They contacted the army and were given a platoon of the 24th Regiment of Foot, the South Wales Borders, and they were billeted just above our heads, under the command of 19-year-old Lieutenant John Hutchinson. On the 29th of September 1878, a huge crowd gathered in the streets of Clitheroe, and they came mainly from Manchester and Bolton. They were textile workers. They had come here to Clitheroe to see their brothers for the trade union movement. When they arrived here, they were horrified to find that Mr. Easton, the mayor of Clitheroe, had closed every public house down, apart from the Swan Royal Hotel. The ringleaders made their way straight to the entrance of the Swan Royal Hotel, were met by Mr. Easton, the mayor of Clitheroe. "Gentlemen, you are not welcome. I suggest you go back to Manchester right away." This caused mass rioting in the town centre. Windows were smashed, public houses broken into, and looting took place. Mr. Easton then, therefore, had to get power from Westminster, and the only way he could do that was to shout the Riot Act, a legal requirement. He stood on the steps of the Swan Royal Hotel and shouted, "Our Sovereign Lady the Queen chargeth and commandeth that persons assembled are to disperse peaceably to their habitats and lawful businesses. Failure to comply with this order, resulting in tumultuous and righteous behaviour, will be dealt with accordingly. God save the Queen." The infantry came down from upstairs in their scarlet red tunics and a brand new rifle called a Martini Henry breech loader. Outside in the courtyard, they fixed bayonets and made their way out into the streets of Clitheroe. Within 15 minutes, they'd secured every single street in the town, but 14 of the textile workers lay dead outside the building. The soldiers stayed for a further 3.5 weeks. In that period of time, they were never used in acts of violence again, but they became very, very popular with the town's young ladies. And 2 soldiers got permission from their officer to marry 2 Clitheroe girls at St Mary's Parish Church. Relatives were informed, letters sent back to the barracks in Brecon, South Wales, and the double wedding was planned. 2 days before the double wedding was going to take place, a communique was sent from Brecon up to Clitheroe to Hutchinson, informing him that his regiment were being sent overseas. The lieutenant pleaded, "I've got 2 men getting married. Can you give me 2 more days?" Denied. The troops left, leaving the 2 girls absolutely heartbroken. Within 5 weeks of leaving Clitheroe, they'd boarded a steam packet and found themselves under the blazing hot African sun. There they joined Lord Chelmsford's ill-fated number 3 column and invaded Zululand. There, on the 21st of January 1879, King Katsueo unleashed his Zulu impis, and all those boys who had been here only months previously found themselves dead under the hot African sun. When word filtered back from the Battle of Isandlwana that all the soldiers that had been billeted here had lost their lives, 2 people were deeply upset. The 2 girls that were looking forward to their wedding day. One more than the other, a 17-year-old girl called Anne Druce. And Anne found to her horror she was actually carrying a child. A terrible sin for that period of time to become pregnant outside of wedlock. Her mother and father disowned her. She tearfully made her way to this very room, the last room she'd seen her husband to be, and there she made a terrible decision to end her life. She calmly made her way to this area here. She opened the window, removed the window cord sashing, and she made a noose for herself. She tied the end of the window cord sashing to the bedstead, and then she gently made her way onto the windowsill. She jumped, and her neck was broken cleanly and efficiently, and she died within a matter of seconds. It's said that Anne's ghost actually haunts this very room, but also the top corridor behind us. There's been many sightings of this ghostly figure walking through walls. Windows have closed by themselves, toilets have flushed by themselves, lights have turned on and off by themselves. But by far the most interesting story relates to an American tourist that stayed here in 1968. This gentleman was enjoying his bacon and eggs, and he heard the sound of rushing water coming from the bathroom. He walked into the bathroom and saw one of the taps was on full. He then watched the other tap turn on by itself, and then watched in horror as the soap was lifted from the soap dish, rotated, placed back in the soap dish, and each tap turned off by itself. Well, this room is called the Gandhi Room. And would you believe Gandhi came here in the 1930s to look at the textile factories that he'd actually put an embargo on. So Gandhi may have been a big hit in India, but perhaps not so much here in Lancashire. It's said he was offered this lovely bed to sleep in, but preferred the floor because the bed apparently was a bit too comfy. But here we have our second ghost story. People sleeping in this room used to complain bitterly about being kept awake by the sound of a baby crying. It became so bad that when guests would arrive, the staff used to say, "Look, have you got a baby with you?" It went on and on and on. And people were woken up in the early hours of the morning by this constant crying of a baby. It became so bad that the room was hardly ever used. But the problem was solved in 1957 when some renovation work took place in the attic above our heads. As the builders sifted through the debris in the attic, they came across a large quantity of Victorian newspapers, and they found a package a bit like a football with a century's dust on top. They blew the dust off and unravelled the newspaper. The last piece of paper revealed a baby's skeleton. The skeleton was removed and buried at St Mary's Parish Church, and the crying has never returned to the Gandhi Room. This marvellous building, the Swan Royal Hotel, does have some really intriguing ghost stories. One of my favourites is the story of John T Martindale, and he arrived here on a bitterly cold December day in 1884. John T's job was to go to the city of Liverpool. He'd watch the ships coming in laden with cotton from Louisiana, Mississippi and Egypt. He would take samples from each bale. He would then come to visit the textile barons of Lancashire and Yorkshire, and he would sell his cotton to them. He arrived here that bitterly cold day. As the coach arrived in the courtyard, he was very concerned about his wife. She was expecting their first child, and he told his wife, "Don't worry, I will be by your side when you give birth." He rushed inside the building, made his way straight to the fireplace, and felt the rays of heat over his frozen coat and frozen body. The landlord, Mr. Nicholson, had a warm meal ready for him and a warm drink. He then met the textile barons in the ballroom here at the Swan Royal Hotel, and they made all their orders. He then rushed downstairs and waited for the coach to arrive. It became dark. He looked out the window, and in the courtyard he saw 6 horses and a coach. Ah, that's my coach. He left at great speed and sat inside the coach. His eyes became accustomed to the light, or the darkness really, and sitting in the coach he could make out what looked like 2 female characters. One with a very, very large Victorian bonnet on, the other with a Victorian bonnet, but both looking at the floor, and both seemed almost like statues. One of them seemed to be a young lady with a baby wrapped in a blanket on her lap. Jonty tried to get a conversation going. "Excuse me, ladies, it's rather damp in here, a bit musty. Would you mind, please, if I just open the window to let some fresh air in?" There was no answer. The coach juddered forward, left the courtyard and made its way to the centre of Clitheroe. Jonty made a second request. "Excuse me, ladies, would you mind if I just open the window, please? It's rather musty in here, a bit damp." No answer. In a fit of temper, he stood up and thought, right. He reached for the leather strap which was attached to the window casing and he tugged it. As he tugged it, to his horror, half the window frame came away in his hand. It was rotten. He then heard a scream. He turned to his right and the elderly lady with the long Victorian bonnet had slowly lifted her head to look at him. Where there should have been a face was a hollow, dark cavity. Martindale screamed in terror. He fell out of the coach and banged his head on the road in the centre of the town. He came round 5 minutes later with a rather nasty head wound and trudged through a blizzard back to the Swan Royal Hotel. As he made his way to the entrance, the landlord, John Nicholson, saw him. "Mr. Martindale, what's happened to you?" "Oh, I got in a coach. This woman, she had no face. This woman, she had a baby." "Mr. Martindale, calm down, calm down. Your coach is still at the back of the Swan Royal Hotel. Your horse is still being fed and watered. And if you look outside, the snow is so deep that any coach that arrived or left would have definitely made an imprint on the snow." Jonty was convinced he got in a coach that night. We do know that year was 1884. In 1882, the Lancaster-Manchester left Clitheroe to make its way to Preston. To get to Preston, it had to go what's called Jeffrey Hill, a very open mountainous region just above Preston. A gust of wind caught the coach and it toppled over the ravine, killing 6 horses, a driver, an elderly lady, and a young woman and her baby. We do know that Martindale got home the following day, just in time to watch the birth of his daughter. And as his daughter grew up, she was enchanted by the stories of the ghost coach of the Swan Royal Hotel. Well, I hope you've really enjoyed your tour of this fabulous, fabulous hotel. As I said, every room has a story behind it. The Swan Royal Hotel in Clitheroe is well worth a visit. They have their own website, which is simply www.swanandroyal.co.uk. Hope you enjoy your stay, but do watch out for those ghosts. You never know what's around the corner in this fabulous old coaching inn.